I slipped into the apartment after a long day, the key turning softly in the lock like I was stealing back into my own life. The kind that usually made me exhale everything. I kicked off my heels, heart already softening at the thought of surprising him, my husband, curled up in bed after his night shift prep. A late-night cuddle, my body pressing close under the covers, nothing more, just the quiet relief of us. I pushed the bedroom door open, the dim lamp casting a golden haze across the sheets, and then I froze. There he was, Alex. My husband's best friend, shirtless, leaning back against the headboard, one knee drawn up, looking up at me with those wide, startled eyes. The air between us thickened instantly. My husband, he was still at the night shift, I knew that. But standing there in my work blouse and skirt, alone with the one man I'd spent months pretending not to notice, my pulse slammed hard against my ribs. This is just a stupid mix-up. A Chi-esque rashing here for a few weeks, that's all. But why does the sight of him make my skin feel too tight already? Why does the room suddenly feel smaller, hotter? I mumbled something, an awkward sorry, I thought, and backed out fast, pulling the door almost shut behind me. My back hit the hallway wall. I could still see it, though, burned behind my eyelids. The way the light caught on his bare chest, the slow rise and fall of his breathing, and how his gaze had lingered just a second too long on me before dropping. Later, alone in the guest room where it changed, I slipped into my silk nightgown. The fabric whispered against my thighs as I smoothed it down, cool at first, then warming quickly from my skin. I caught my reflection and paused. Had he noticed? The way it clung in places? No, stop. It's just a guest. I'm married. This is nothing. But that look, it was nothing, was it? My fingers trembled as I turned off the light, the soft cotton sheets suddenly feeling too warm, too alive against my legs as I lay there, staring at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come easy. The next morning the three of us sat at the breakfast table like nothing had shifted. My husband laughed at one of Alex's old jokes, easy and loud, the way he always did with his best friend. I poured coffee, trying to keep my hands steady. When I handed Alex his mug, our fingers brushed, just for a heartbeat. A jolt shot up my arm, sharp and unexpected, like static but warmer, deeper. I pulled back too quickly. The radio played low in the background, that old song Wonderwall, the same one that used to fill the air during our college hangouts years ago, when everything felt lighter, before rings and promises and careful boundaries. My husband tapped his foot to the rhythm, oblivious, reaching for the toast. I smiled at them both, but inside something flickered. Forbidden, warm, dangerous. For the first time, sitting right there with my husband beside me, I felt it. That pull toward Alex, the way his eyes met mine over the rim of the mug. Just for a moment, the way my breath caught. I told myself it was the lack of sleep. The long day, yesterday, nothing more, but my body remembered the brush of fingers. The almost touch, the way the air had thickened last night when I stood in that doorway. And as the song played on, I wondered how long I could keep pretending this was still innocent. That afternoon my husband dashed out for a quick errand, keys jingling as the door clicked shut behind him. Alex lingered in the living room, sleeves rolled up, offering to help fold the laundry still warm from the dryer. I nodded, throat suddenly dry, and we sat on opposite ends of the couch with the basket between us like a fragile shield. Our hands kept meeting over the soft towels, fingers brushing accidentally, then not so accidentally. The clean scent of detergent curled in the air, mixing with the faint trace of his cologne. Something woody and warm that made the room feel smaller. I laughed at his silly story about a clumsy gym mishap, the sound too bright, too forced. My pulse raced every time our eyes met, even for a split second. It's just laundry, harmless folding. Why am I noticing how strong his arms look when he reaches across? The way the fabric stretches over his shoulders. I love my husband. Don't I? This is nothing, just two people helping out while the third is gone for 10 minutes. The stack of towels grew between us, but the space didn't. Every pass of a warm sheet brought us closer, knees almost touching on the cushion. His breath was steady, mine. Oh, not so much. I kept telling myself to focus on the creases, on matching corners perfectly, but my mind kept slipping to how near his skin felt through the thin air. Later that evening my husband still wasped back. the kitchen filled with the sizzle of onions and garlic as Alex and I cooked dinner together, shoulder to shoulder at the narrow stove. He reached for the salt shaker behind me, his chest brushing lightly against my back. His breath, warm and quiet, grazed the side of my neck for one endless heartbeat. The wooden spoon trembled in my hand. Heat from the pan rose between us, but it was nothing compared to the sudden flush spreading under my skin. I stirred faster, pretending the recipe needed all my attention. He didn't pull away right away. Neither did I. I told myself it was only because we were both tired, both a little lonely in our own quiet ways. My husband working long hours, Alex between places, me caught in the middle of routines that suddenly felt too tight. Nothing more, just practical closeness, the kind that happens when you share a small kitchen and an even smaller silence. His voice was low when he asked if the sauce needed more seasoning. I nodded without turning, afraid my face would give everything away. The ache in my chest washed hunger for dinner. It was something heavier, pulling like gravity I couldn't name. That night, I came back from a short walk to clear my head, the cool air still clinging to my jacket. Only the bathroom light spilling out. The door stood slightly ajar, just a few inches. Enough. I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Through the narrow gap I caught Alex stepping out of the shower, a towel slung low around his hips. Water droplets traced slope as down the line of his back, catching the light before disappearing. He moved with that easy confidence, reaching for another towel, Huffles shifting under damp skin. My heart slammed against my ribs. I should have looked away, turned around, walked straight to my room and closed the door tight. Instead I stood frozen in the hallway, breath caught somewhere high in my throat, the image burning itself behind my eyes. This is wrong. I'm spying on my husband's friend, a guest in our home, but the way he moves, the quiet strength in every small motion. It refused to fade even as I forced myself to step back, one silent foot after another. Heat flooded my cheeks. I pressed a hand to my mouth, willing my pulse to slow. The memory followed me anyway, stubborn and vivid, as I slipped into the guest room and closed the door with trembling fingers. The sheets felt too warm when I finally lay down, the darkness too full of questions I didn't dare answer. How long could I keep pretending none of this was happening, when every ordinary moment now carried this secret electricity? I woke up to the sound of my husband packing his suitcase in the hallway, his voice low on a work call about flights and meetings, to whole days. The apartment door clicked shut behind him, and the quiet that followed felt heavier than it should have. Suddenly the room seemed smaller, the walls closer, like the space itself was holding its breath with me. Alex suggested takeout that first evening, nothing fancy, just boxes of noodles and dumplings spread across the couch. We shared a blanket because the AC was too cold, our legs brushing underneath the soft fleece by accident at first. Each time fabric shifted, the warmth of his calf against mine sent a slow ripple up my skin, deliberate in a way that made my pulse stutter. I kept my eyes on the food, but every casual touch felt like a question neither of us asked. I started counting the hours until my husband would be back, while a secret part of me dreaded the moment the apartment would feel full again. What was wrong with me? This was just politeness to adults making the best of an empty home. Yet the silence between bites grew thicker, sweeter, pulling me in like warm water I couldn't step out of. Something tense with shadows and whispered secrets on screen. Halfway through, during a scene where the music swelled, Alex's hand came to rest lightly on my knee. I didn't move it. The heat from his palm seeped through my thin pants, spreading like wildfire through dry grass, making my breath catch in shallow waves. Sharp and loud in the dim room, my husband's name lit up the screen. I jumped up so fast the blanket slipped away, guilt crashing over me like cold rain. "Hey, everything okay there?" his voice asked, tired but warm. I mumbled something about dinner and missing him, my cheeks burning while Alex sat perfectly still on the couch, watching me with eyes that knew too much. I almost crossed the line. What is happening to me? This has to stop. My heart hammered as I paced the kitchen after hanging up, pressing cool fingers to my temples. He was my husband's friend, staying only because of a flooded apartment and kind promises. I was married. Content. The words looped in my head like a prayer I no longer fully believed. The next day we went grocery shopping together, the cart bumping along narrow aisles crowded with weekend shoppers. Someone squeezed past us near the spices, forcing our bodies to press briefly together. I inhaled without meaning to Sandalwood mixed with something warmer. Uniquely him, and felt my careful resolve begin to fray at the edges, threads pulling loose one by one. Back home, I helped him reach a heavy jar on the high shelf in the pantry. I stretched up on my toes, my shirt riding up just enough to expose a sliver of skin at my waist. The air felt charged, electric. When I turned, I caught him staring, his gaze lingering a second too long before flicking away. Instead of shame flooding me, a dark thrill raced through my veins, hot and forbidden, making my stomach tighten with a hunger I refused to name. I told myself it was nothing, just the closeness of shared space, the way ordinary moments stretched when no one else was watching. My husband trusted us both. Alex was only being helpful, polite, nothing more, yet as I stepped down, our arms brushed again, and the ache that followed settled deep, whispering that maybe I didn't want the interruption to come so soon next time. How much longer could I pretend this was innocent, when even the simplest errands now left me rambling with questions I was afraid to answer out loud? That final night before my husband returned, the apartment felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath with me. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, heart knocking against my ribs, until I couldn't pretend anymore. The floor cool under bare skin. The living room was dark except for the faint glow from the streetel twilight slipping through the blinds. Alex was there on the couch, one arm draped over his eyes, breathing slow and even. I whispered his name, barely a sound, just enough to stir the air between us. His eyes opened, dark and wide, catching the same pull that had been building for days. For a long moment neither of us moved. Then my hand reached out, hesitant at first, brushing the edge of the blanket. His fingers found mine, warm and sure, and everything shifted. The space between us vanished in a rush of heat and trembling need. Clothes whispered away like forgotten excuses, skin meeting skin in a way that erased every careful boundary we'd drawn. His breath was ragged against my neck, mine lost somewhere in the silence, and there was no going back now. This was betrayal, sharp and sweet, and I didn't want it to end. God help me, I didn't. We lay angled together afterward, breathing hard, the air thick with the quiet proof of what we'd done. My cheek rested against his chest, listening to the frantic beat that matched my own. This never happened, I whispered into the dark, even as his fingers traced slow, lazy patterns along my spine, sending fresh shivers I couldn't hide. He nodded against my hair, but we both knew the words were hollow. From a neighbor's apartment drifted the faint chords of an old song. Wonderwall, soft and aching, each familiar line now carrying a secret weight that made my throat tighten. Satisfaction bloomed warm in my veins, tangled with a guilt so sharp it somehow made every sensation brighter, more alive. I felt raw, exposed, yet strangely whole in the wrong arms. How could something so wrong feel like the only honest thing I'd done in months? Morning light crept into soon. I heard the key in the lock, my husband's familiar footsteps, cheerful and unsuspecting. He walked through the door smiling, suitcase in hand, none the wiser. I met him in the hallway, pressing a kiss to his lips while my pulse still echoed with someone else's name. Alex stood in the kitchen doorway, coffee mug in hand, his gaze brushing mine for a split second. Heavy with everything we couldn't say. The secret hung between us like smoke that refused to clear. As I poured coffee again, the same mug from that very first morning, the steam rose in lazy curls. Everything looked ordinary. The same counters, the same quiet routine, but now every small gesture carried hidden layers, every glance laced with dangerous pleasure I could never admit. My husband chatted about his trip, voice warm and trusting, and I nodded, smiling in all the right places. Yet my mind kept slipping back, replaying the weight of another body. The way surrender had felt like falling and flying at once. That night I slipped into bed beside my husband, his arm draping familiar over my waist. The sheet smelled like home, like safety, but my thoughts drifted across the hall, to the couch that no longer held the same man, to the ache that hadn't faded with daylight. How do I go back to normal when every ordinary moment now feels like the edge of something I can never touch again? This confession, it's all I have left, whispered into the dark where no one else will ever hear. How much longer can I keep pretending, when the hunger still whispers my name in a voice that isn't his?